Hey kids, it's Mr. Fly here, hope you're well. And welcome to a very chilly December day here in Great Missenden, where I'm extremely excited because I'm on a much anticipated and long awaited motorcycle today. Today I'm riding one of the first production versions of the new BSA Gold Star. I'm absolutely thrilled to be one of the first YouTubers to get my hands on the official motorbike and tell you what I think of it. So stick around, stay tuned. If you're interested in this bike, I'll let you know what I think of it. Okay, so when I say this bike has been long awaited, what I mean is I first saw this back at the NEC Motorcycle Live show in I think it was December 2021, wasn't it? We've just had Motorcycle Live again in 2022 and we still haven't seen these in the dealers. When I spoke to the BSA guys originally on the stand, they said that this bike would be in the shops for spring of this year, 2022. Well, that of course never happened. They're only just now, I think, starting to get to dealers. In fact, this particular bike is one of the first 30 post-production models to be shipped into the country. So it has taken a while for these bikes to get here. Has it been worth the wait? Well, before we get into how she rides and whether indeed it has been worth the wait, let's remind ourselves what the bike looks like and see what we think of the production version of the motorcycle. Alright, here is the bike. Let's take a look at this one and see how it differs from those pre-production bikes we saw at the NEC last year perhaps. Okay, right, let's take a close look then at some of the details, the things that I always look at, and things like the fit and finish. So check out the welds on here. Look at that there, it's completely lovely, the welding, no pigeon poo whatsoever. These all look absolutely fine, and I would say again the frame on here compared to, for example, the Royal Enfield, the frame welds on here are so much nicer, much neater. They're not perfect, I mean there are some that are a little bit tricky. I don't know, maybe that one there doesn't look quite so good, but generally speaking the frame welds are beautiful on here. The fit and finish on everywhere else is lovely as well. I mean, look at the tank on here. This is the Legacy Silver version with this beautiful chrome part on it and the badge, which is beautifully done. We'll be interested to see how this stands up over time and whether you scratch that with your legs or whatever. So I mean, it looks lovely and it looks proper retro BSA, doesn't it? Apes the original BSA of the 50s and 60s. Love that. Things like this little bit of trim here as well completely ape the original bike. I got a picture actually of the original bike, one from, I think it's the 500cc from 1963, and it looks very, very similar. I mean, something I don't like about this bike is the height, for example, of the rear mudguard above the tyre. I think that looks a bit rubbish, but if you look at the picture of the original bike was just like that. So again, they are being true to form on here. Other thing that's changed since the bikes we saw at the NEC a couple of years ago, it looks like the exhaust pipe at the front, the down pipe, the header, has been changed slightly. Everybody complained that it was too thick. It still is quite thick, but they've put this shroud around less of it, so it looks a bit better now. We've still got the massive radiator at the front that everybody doesn't like. There's not much you can do about that. We are in liquid cooled days, of course, but yeah, overall, I mean, these forks, these are all beautifully made. The clocks on it are works of art, like something from a watchsmith's. Everything about it, absolutely love this seat. Really, really nicely made. Little British flag on there, which is a nice touch. Things like on the fuel cap here, lovely gun logo there on the fuel cap. Really, really nice. Oh, another thing to mention as well, USB ports here, USB-C and B, the original type. So, well, I suppose A was the original type, you get what I mean. Anyway, yeah, a lovely, lovely looking machine. All right, so much for what she looks like. Let's get on, ride her, see how she goes. Okay, so welcome back aboard the Gold Star then. So much for what she looks like, and she looks lovely, I have to say. How does she ride? Well, when I've heard that this was a big single, I was a little bit trepidatious, if that's a word, because I'm not a massive fan of single cylinder bikes. I just find them too damn thumpy. Now I know that some people say that's the whole point and that's their appeal, but for me that's not been the case in the past. I just hadn't really enjoyed singles, but this is the first single I've ridden that is actually pretty smooth. Do not despair if you're one of those people that loves that thumper nature of singles, because it's still got that. I don't know if you can hear through the microphone in the helmet, but the engine's got that lovely thumpy character, and in fact it still has got bags of character. You know that you're on a single cylinder motorcycle, but they've done some clever engineering on here. I can tell you with things like hello, what's this fella doing? Things like balancer shafts and flywheels, no doubt. because as you ride her, the thumpiness of it is not intrusive in any way. It's just enough to remind you that you're on a motorcycle. The vibes are no worse than any modern Triumph I've ridden, or Royal Enfield, anything like that. So do not let the fact that it's a single worry you. In fact, it's a great thing. Now, throughout this review, I'm likely to compare this bike a lot with the Royal Enfield Interceptor. That's for two reasons. One, I think the sorts of people that are going to buy this bike are also the sorts of people that might be considering a Royal Enfield Interceptor. And two, I've been an owner of an Interceptor for the last 3 years, thereabouts, so I know that bike well, and it's the one that this most reminds me of. So some due comparison throughout the review I think is fair enough. And the first point I would say is, as soon as I jumped on this and pulled away, it felt quicker than the Enfield. As you pull away in first and second gear, it's got a lot more urgency than the Interceptor has, which surprised me. Let's take a look at the engine on this, shall we? So here is that urgent looking engine. These are actually designed in Austria, and I've got a feeling they're made by Rotax. I may be wrong about that, but that's a good thing if they are. But it looks again very true to the original motor, doesn't it, on the original BSA Gold Star? But the fit and finish on there again is lovely. The sort of crackle paint and so on it looks really, really nice. In terms of the specs, it's 652cc liquid cooled single cylinder unit. That's actually technically 4cc more than the Royal Enfield Interceptor. Puts out 45 brake horsepower, this particular unit, and again, for comparison, the Interceptor puts at 47, so you know they're within a sniff of each other, aren't they? And again, interestingly, the 1963 Gold Star, the 500cc version, I think put out 42 horsepower, so you know it's been 60 years and we've gained 3 horsepower. Is that progress? I don't know, you decide. Anyway, so there we go. That's the engine. Torque-wise, 55 newton meters of torque at 4,000 RPM. The Interceptor, 52.3 newton meters of torque. So on paper, the engine's very similar, but as I say, this one actually feels much more urgent to be. Maybe because it's got quite short gearing off in first and second gears, or it feels it to me. Okay, so much for the engine then. What about the comfort on the machine? What does she feel like when you ride her? Well, again, I have to say, very nice indeed. It's the nature of this bike. It's, you know, a comfortable machine, sit up and beg type of riding position. My legs are at just slightly less than 90 degrees, but they're not. It's not uncomfortable at all. I'm sat pretty much bolt upright. Handlebars are nice and wide. The seat is lovely and padded and feels very comfortable. And also it's a long bench seat, so you know, you can move around it. If you've got long arms or you're a big chap and you sit a long way back, then it'll accommodate you for that. I'm just a shorty, but it's absolutely fine for me, so it's a comfortable place to be. So here is that seat in question. I think it's a nicely made unit. Look, you've got this nice white contrasting stitching on it and the little flag that I've already pointed out. It's also got BSA embossed in the back. I don't know if you can see that with the camera, but that's a nice little touch too. Nicely padded, nice and big. Nothing wrong with that seat whatsoever. In terms of seat height, it's 780 millimeters, so nice and low, should be good for shorter riders. I'm 5'8", I can get my feet flat on the deck, no problem at all. Out of interest, again, that original BSA of 1968, I think was 770 mil, so very similar seat height to the original bike as well. So we've established then she's a comfortable place to be, both in terms of the seating position, your riding position, handlebars, and everything else about it. Again, how is it compared to the Interceptor? Well, it's very, very similar. That's also a comfortable bike. The seat on here is certainly more comfortable than the seat I have on my Interceptor, but then I have a custom made seat on my Interceptor, so it's not a like for like comparison. How does she handle then? Well, let's go down this road here, which has got a terrible road surface, so we can give the suspension a little test. And this, I think, is a great test because it's a damp road. Look, really bright sunshine today, and it's a good test of the suspension down this road because this normally rattles my teeth out. The suspension on here is relatively simple. We'll take a look at it in a second, but I have to say this top road is fine. It's set on the soft side. This is exactly the sort of road that this bike was invented for, I'm sure. Back roads ideally on a Sunday summer's day, but on a Tuesday in December it's perfectly nice as well. Yeah, the suspension feels nice. As I say, it's set up soft, but that's fine. It eats up these bumps with aplomb. It's a lot more comfortable than much more expensive bikes than I've ridden in terms of the suspension. Allied to that, of course, is handling. How does that feel? Well, she feels nice and light. Don't have to muscle it through the corners at all. Turns really nicely. Again, by way of comparison to the Interceptor, what's the handling like compared to the Interceptor? Well, you know what? I think it's got the edge on it. There might just be, of course, that this bike is brand new and everything's nice and tight. But this reminds me more of riding a modern day Triumph than it does the Royal Enfield Interceptor. And that is a good thing, by the way, because I've nothing wrong at all with the Royal Enfield. I love that bike too, of course. But it can feel a bit budget, and down this road the suspension gets out of shape. This one not so. In fact, even on my Speed Twin the suspension can get out of shape down here. This feels alright, you know. It is pretty simple suspension on here. Let's take a look at it. So here it is, nothing special, just 41mm forks on the front, no adjustment whatsoever there. And on the back you've got these twin coil springs, which is a similar setup to the Royal Enfield actually. And this is adjustable. I think it's got 5 different settings for preload on here. But yeah, pretty simple suspension, but it feels pretty plush actually. While we're down here at the action end, let's have a look at the brakes as well. On here you've got calipers that are marked Brembo as opposed to Bi-Bray, so these are the more premium version of the brakes. They seem to work absolutely fine. Actually, that front brake, very good, feels nice and progressive. Only a single disc, but the stopping power seems good. You can see the ABS ring on there as well. In terms of spec, this front disc is 320mm, with a Brembo 2-pot caliper with ABS, and on the rear we've got a coming around this side a 255mm disc, and again a Brembo, looks like a single pot caliper on there. But yeah, the brakes on here work absolutely fine, no problem at all. Nothing special, but they do the job of stopping the bike, no problem. Okay, what about the gearbox on here then? Just coming through the gears down the box, it's very easy to change gears, of course, but when you get to first, it's got this weird feeling to the lever, like there's no spring rebound on it. It's absolutely fine. I'm going up through the box now and it's nice and positive, no trouble finding neutral. Clutch on here, nice and light, everything's good about it until you change to first and the lever just feels a bit flappy. I don't know what's going on there. It feels like it needs a stronger return spring. At first I thought maybe it didn't have a spring at all. It has, because it does return, but it's just a bit set too light for my liking. It's a small point, and it's the only thing I've found so far that I don't like about the bike. The only thing that makes it feel a bit cheap. Not that it is incredibly cheap, it is good value. Let's talk about the price for a bit. Right, pricing then, wrote these down so I don't get them wrong. 6,500 for the Highland Green. That's the cheapest price you can get. I actually like the Highland Green, it's one of my favourites. It comes in 5 colours, by the way. If you want this fancier Silver Sheen Legacy one, which is the one with the chrome on it, that'll cost you £7,000. So that is £600 more than a chrome Royal Enfield Interceptor, which, okay, it's a bit of a shame that they couldn't undercut the Interceptor, I suppose. But having said that, having ridden it now and seen that this actually feels like a more quality bike than the Interceptor, then I think that's pretty good value. Okay, so having said it's a really good value bike, it doesn't feel cheap at all, with the one exception of that gear lever that I just talked about being a bit flappy in first. The ride quality feels great. The fit and finish, as you saw on the bike, is top notch. In my mind, way surpasses the Royal Enfields, and they're pretty good as well now, it has to be said. I mean, maybe it's not quite as good as Triumphs, which are unbelievably well made, but it ain't far off, I have to say. When I first saw this bike at the NEC, I thought it looked all right, and they were kind of prototypes, and I thought maybe they had been sort of, you know, hand finished and were going to be better than the actual production bike. But this production version of the machine is actually way better in terms of fit and finish than the prototypes were that I saw at the NEC, and they weren't bad. So again, I would say this was closer to a Triumph in terms of its quality and feel than it is the Royal Enfield. I'm loving the character on here actually when you wind her up. Got a nice note about that exhaust. So let's talk weight on the BSA then, something that's very important to me whenever I consider buying a motorcycle. I want to know how much it weighs, how's it going to feel. Well, this one comes in at 213 kilograms wet, and that compares with the Royal Enfield Interceptor at 217 kilograms in running order. So this is what, 5 kilograms lighter. It does actually feel more light than that. Generally speaking, it's a noticeably lighter than the Royal Enfield Interceptor, I find. And again, by way of comparison with the original bike, the original 1968 BSA, actually dry, weighs weighed 170 kilograms. So again, is that progress? Got to be a little bit careful because this is a brand new bike, not been run in, so I don't want to thrash the pants off it. But yeah, it's got plenty of go. It does feel more urgent than the Interceptor, I have to say, which sometimes feels a bit lackluster once you wind her past sort of 60 miles an hour. Right, what are we looking at here then as you ride the bike? Well, the mirrors, sort of Mickey Mouse looking, well, they work perfectly well. They're quite small, but I can see behind me fine, and there's no untoward vibration through them, so no problem there. The clocks on the bike I absolutely love. Look, they're lit up in this white backlight. They look really classy. I love the way they've got the reverse sweep both on the RPM gauge and on the mileometer, or the speedometer I should say. That's an homage to the original BSAs, of course, which did the same thing. They look absolutely brilliant. If I've got a complaint about them, it's just that they're angled a little bit flat for my liking. If they were angled slightly up, I suppose they don't move, no. If they were angled a little bit up towards me, it would be better. But they do look beautiful, proper old school clocks. Nothing untoward on there. You've got a proper fuel gauge, a little LCD fuel gauge on the right one, and then you've got your mileometer on the left hand one on the speed gauge. It's all in miles now. It looks like quality items, really nicely presented. Switch gear as well, nothing special about it, but it's not ropey and it's not cheap looking or feeling. It's really nice. Again, I would say the fit and finish around the handlebar area switch gear is better than the Royal Enfield. Not quite as good as the Triumph, but not far off. 95% of the way there. Okay, so I thought I should give the bike a quick go on a faster road. So here I am on a dual carriageway. It's easily doing 70, well actually indicated 75 at the moment, and it's got loads more to give. On faster roads, the bike is absolutely fine. It is, of course, a naked bike. I'm in the wind blast. It's not turbulent air, though. It's absolutely fine. But there's no lack of power here. Once again, it feels much more powerful. It's not, but it feels a lot more powerful than the Royal Enfield Interceptor. In terms of colours available for the bike, there are actually 5 colours. Red, black, silver, green and silver sheen, and this legacy silver one, as I mentioned, which seems to be very popular because it apes the original bike. The green one being the cheapest, as I said. I actually think I preferred the green. Over through 2023, I'm told they're just going to stick with those 5 colours and this one bike. There are new models coming in the BSA lineup then. In fact, I think at the NEC show that's just been, they showed a prototype scrambler version of the bike. So what's the betting in 2024? We're going to see some new models, including a scrambler version of the bike. When I indicate, look, the little idiot lights are in the top of the headlight there. I like that. That's where the neutral light is as well, which took me a while to find to start with. Right, I've gone back to first here and I've got that flappy paddle again, which feels really odd. So it's quite short geared in first and second. You have to change gear quite quickly, as you'd expect, but then in third, look, I'm up to 70. That's so right down very quickly. So third gear is the one you're going to play in, I think. You pretty much leave it set in third and just do what you want. When you do get the revs wrong and it's and you're lugging the bike, which I'm trying not to do because, as I say, it's not run in, but it doesn't got that horrible thumpiness that you often get on singles. It doesn't feel like you're riding a pneumatic drill or anything like that if you get it wrong. It really is very easy to ride. Can't resist a quick lugging about test to see what it's going to feel like moving it around in your garage. So to my usual spot here at Great Bissenden Station to simulate what it's like moving the bike around. Right, find neutral. Easy enough, stands nice and easy to get down. There we go. Right, there she is then. There's sort of a bit here, I guess, is for panniers or whatever to not go into the wheel, but not really any grab handles to speak of, so hand on the seat job. Easy to lift off the stand. Right, there we go, full round. And, well, I'd say it feels a lot lighter than the Royal Enfield Interceptor and a lot lighter than my Triumph Speed Twin, which is the lightest of the Triumph Bonnevilles, by the way. Dead easy to move around. No difficulty lifting off the side stand whatsoever. Very easy to live with. Another thumbs up for the BSA. Alright, so the big question then is, Do I think you should buy one of these? Well, clearly it's up to you to decide whether you want one or not, but I think actually based on this first little ride, probably yes. It's exceeded my expectations in its ride quality and its build quality. I suppose the only question is, do you trust BSA as a company? Is of course an unknown quantity, this new company, as far as we're concerned here in the UK. I mean, they promised us the bike this spring, didn't they? It never turned up, so that's one thing to bear in mind. I registered with the website ages ago for information on the bike, and I never heard another thing from them, so that was interesting. Also, they've been putting out social media posts for absolutely ages. I've been writing to them via their social media posts. They never responded to me. So that might all just be teething problems, might be because they didn't have marketing and PR in place at that point. So, you know, bear that in mind as you will. But so far, they've kind of let us down a little bit, haven't they? So the trust has gone. So let's hope now that they are going to be knocking these out. They do turn out to be reliable. And it's, you know, it starts to give some proper competition for the likes of the Interceptor, because I think it's a cracking bike. I really do. So sadly, I haven't got the bike for very long. It's in great demand, as you can imagine. It has to go back to BSA tomorrow. I don't know if I'm going to get a chance to ride it tomorrow before they pick it up. So I'm not able to do a sort of a more in-depth review for you, but hopefully this has given you a bit of a taste for what the new BSA Gold Star is like. And for me, it surprised me. I thought I was going to like it, but I like it a lot. Other thing to mention, it's got a 2-year warranty on this as well, which might be very important, of course, because it's an unproven bike in terms of how reliable it's going to be. What I would say is BSA, 60% owned by Mahindra, a massive Indian company that makes many, many hundreds of thousands of motorcycles, I'm guessing, but they make a lot of bikes. They know how to make bikes. I have no reason to believe that this will be unreliable in any way. But anyway, it's got a 2-year warranty in case that's important to you. Or the other thing that's important, of course, is what about dealer support? And that was one of the questions that I had for the guys at the NEC last year, and they couldn't really answer at that point. But things have moved on somewhat since last year. Now, I had a look at the website yesterday and I counted 22 dealers in England for BSA, which included some established names like Fowler's of Bristol, but lots of others as well. They are apparently in negotiation with dealers in Northern Ireland and Scotland. Haven't got any yet in place for Wales, but they are of course working on that. So the dealers are coming online for Britain. And then in Europe, there's just been an announcement made that they're going to be using having a tie-up with Peugeot motorcycles, who are also owned by Mahindra, and across Europe they're going to be using their distribution network of dealers. So that's a good thing, already set up, set of dealers for Europe as well. I'm really, really impressed with this machine. It feels quality, it feels solid, it handles nicely. It rides better than I thought, and it looks better than I thought. If I were in the market for a retro, old school British heritage bike, I know it's built in India of course, but you know, it has some British heritage about it. And I was tossing up between this and the Enfield Interceptor. You know what, I think I'll probably go for this. Now if you did want to buy one, how long was it going to take to get hold of one, and are you going to be in for a long wait again? Well, I spoke to BSA about this yesterday when I knew I was getting the bike, and they said that if you order one at a dealer today, you're likely to get it in February, March time. So about a 3-month lead time. That's if you go for one of the cheaper colours. If you go for this one, the chrome and silver version, the legacy paint scheme, that's the one everyone's going for apparently. That's going to take a little bit longer, and you're probably looking April, May for one of those. So I'm afraid, as is that theme, there is going to be a bit more of a wait before you get your hands on your Gold Star if you're after one. But get your order in now if you're interested. You won't be disappointed with the way it rides or looks. And if you want this one, the silver one, the legacy version, then you're probably looking April or May time. That's if you believe what they tell us, of course. BSA have had a little bit of form, haven't they, with promising us stuff and then not delivering. Let's hope that's all in the past now, and let's wish them the best of luck. I can't wait till these are made again in Birmingham. But so far on this first ride, super impressed with it. Really nice bike, exceeded my expectations. So just a couple of other items of spec while I'm next to the bike here. So this fuel tank, what's the capacity of that? Well, it holds 12 litres and that compares to 13.7 on the Enfield Interceptor, but again perfectly good for this type of bike, I would have thought. Electronics on here, none really other than ABS and on the brakes, as I said, and these rather handy USB ports on the handlebars, and then you've got those little LCD displays in those splendid clocks, but otherwise no electronics to talk about. In terms of switch gear, you've got hazard lights on here, your start and stop buttons of course, a button there to change through the various bits of information on the little LCD displays, and on this side you've just got your lights as usual and your horn. Let's see what the horn sounds like, shall we? Let's just give that a little go. If you turn it on, you see that sweep of the dials. And the horn on here, bog standard motorcycle horn. It has to be said, the one on the Interceptor is better than that. Let's also have a little listen to it at idle, shall we? I don't know if you'll pick it up very well through this mic. In fact, let's do this Freddie Dobbs style. Let's start her up. And then taking the mic to the exhaust. Got quite a nice throaty sound. I don't know if I can do this, but I've got enough hands to rev it up while I do it. Let's try it, hang on. Really nice note. It's not obnoxious, and it sounds like a single should. I really like the sound of this bike. Hopefully there will be more on the BSA coming in due course on the channel. I'm hoping to get my hands on this motorcycle again, and I look forward to speaking to you soon. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you haven't been to the channel before, and look forward to speaking to you next time. Until then, this has been the Mr. Flyer. Cheerio. Yeah. Wow, look at that amazing light on the trees there. I'm in a cloudy bit, and then the sun is out up that hill. It looks absolutely stunning. It's such a bizarre year this year. I mean, look at these trees. This looks like autumn still, doesn't it, with autumn leaves on the trees. Yet here we are, 6th of December, and the trees have still got leaves on. Bizarre. Beautiful light out here this evening though. Absolutely stunning. And what a way to enjoy it on a BSA Gold Star, eh? Fabulous.